Hey everybody. So, yeah, I wanted to just offer a little bit of insight for a minute because a lot of you are great reflections of different aspects of ourselves. I mean, if you have 100 to 4,000 to 5,000 people on your Facebook, you're going to see every aspect of yourself and you're going to like some of it, you're not going to like others, and it's going to be definitely like putting a mirror up. And so those that you block off your Facebook are aspects of yourself that you're not really impressed with. And so you try to take it out of your existence, but it's still something that is part of you because we still have people in the world that do emulate the parts of yourselves that you're not proud of. So when I saw this meme that says something about as you get older, or as you age you become more humbled by life, and that's true because one of the most treacherous, precarious, unpredictable processes or parts of people's lives is the growth process from when you're born all the way till you reach your 40s, and then when you start degrading. That's the most precarious, unpredictable, atrocious times in people's lives is the growth process and then the aging and decaying process. And so this is why humanity keeps looping, making the same mistakes every generation. It's the same activism, reconstituted, repackaged, and then redelivered for your enjoyment, I guess. And then we do have a few advancements in society, but overall, we're just repeating the cycle every single generation. And if it isn't fear of one thing, it's fear of another thing. And then what happens is if you haven't conquered the aging process, then you're going to teach your kids the same things that you were taught that caused you to be an activist to begin with. See, and that's why we keep looping, because we haven't conquered life. We haven't conquered the aging process. And you're never going to conquer the aging process if you keep repeating the same mistakes that your parents did. And even if you don't repeat the same exact mistakes, you still have the same mentality. And society keeps teaching the same concepts: division, fear, I don't know, division, fear, and then everything else that contributes to the fall of society. So, I mean, I've been watching the last couple hours, like the 9/11 stuff, and I'm just like, that's a lot of people. I mean, 3,000 people is a lot of people to pass away from other people's imbalances, regardless of who it is. There's a lot of speculation on who actually was the one that perpetrated 9/11, but it doesn't even matter. It's all humans. Humans who have major imbalances that were taught things by their parents contributed and created this mess. And we have so many people on the planet that are glitching simultaneously. Yeah, you're going to see simultaneous glitches and simultaneous loss of life. And until we actually conquer the aging process, you're going to continue to see the sadness, the fear of your government, fear of vaccines, fear of Monsanto, fear of the skies, and fear of 5G, and fear of advancement. You're not going to see any changes in your world because you haven't actually conquered the aging process. See, at some point, some of those memes that you guys put out there about where, realize that everything really, all the stuff that you've dealt with is nonsense, you're going to let all of that drama go. The fear of the vaccines, the fear of the state's going to take you over. You're going to let that drama go, and you're just going to live and, hey, do the jelly juice, get your biochemistry balanced, and then all of a sudden you're going to take yourself out of the drama. You're not going to be contributing to the drama. So I'll tell you what, every single activist out there probably contributed to the 9/11 because that basically it sustains and perpetuates the imbalances that are out there, because we have people that are involving themselves in dramas and controversies that we have no business belonging ourselves into, and then we are a party to it. Now we're a player in it, and now we have a fight. Once you take yourself out of the fight, guess what? It doesn't hold any more energy. Unless somebody actually encroaches upon you in your home. Okay, but here's the thing. Our society, we have to live with people. And so when you live with a bunch of people, there's an environment that you must adapt to. People are environments, just so you understand that. It's not just Mother Nature and trees and rivers and streams and, pavement and concrete. You also live in an environment full of people. You have to understand that when you live in an environment full of people, you have to adapt to that condition. The conditions of different people. People are an environment. My dog is an environment. Okay? My husband is an environment. My neighborhood is an environment. My city, my state, my country is an environment that I must adapt to. None of us can afford to be men on an island. We have to learn how to adapt to an environment. And when there are things like communicable diseases and people breaking life laws, well, we have to get people to adapt to life. And if they're breaking life laws, then we need to hold them accountable. Okay? And that's when we have the law that comes in, like the Ohio Attorney General, like the FDA, the CDC, all of that, to make sure that when you live in an environment, that everybody is pretty much on the same page for the most part. Now, I know we're going to have nuances of differences, which are fine, but when you think about it, the differences are really just the words. We all are looking for pro-life. But we also have to learn how to adapt, okay? We can't stop viruses and bacteria, and we can't force people to live a certain lifestyle. There's a certain benchmark, a certain, I would say, balance of life where individuality is appreciated, but we still have to follow universal laws so we can keep life in order. If we took away all the red lights and took away all the stop signs and took away all the roads in our society, we would have death and chaos because there would be no order. You take away all of your capillaries and take away all of your blood and all the things that keep order in your body. Guess what? You'd be a mess. You wouldn't be able to live functioning in your environment. So your society, the people that you live among, okay, is like parts of your body. It's adapting to the environment. The body has to adapt. It's infinite fractals. And so when we have people who are very weak, and those of you who are aging, and you know who you are because you are aging, you're contributing to the chaos because you're afraid of the vaccines. And all vaccines are bacteria and viruses that you're going to be exposed to anyways, and then minerals. Some of you are over mineralized, but you're also going to be exposed to viruses and bacteria regardless. So wouldn't it behoove you to go and take care of your over mineralization and start taking care of the weaknesses in your body so you can manage and handle your ever-changing environment? And so that's what I'm saying. We're going to keep repeating the same issues. So those of you who haven't conquered the aging process, all you're doing is just cycling and recycling in the same cesspool of bullshit. Those of you who aren't doing Jilly Juice, who say that you are, but you're not, you're just contributing to the same cycles of the same BS over and over and over again. And so when you finally start focusing on your own biochemistry in your own world, and you're not worried about what somebody else is doing with their child, because those of you that are so afraid of vaccines don't even have kids that are of age to be getting vaccines. Okay, we have people who are fighting the anti-vax movement who don't even have any kids, but they're so worried about somebody else's child. That's what is wrong in our society, is nobody's really worried about themselves. They're worried about somebody else's child, somebody else's family, somebody else's body. And they don't leave those types of things to the authorities to go and oversee. No, they want to worry about what somebody else is doing. And so this is why we cycle in the same, that's why we have 9/11s. I mean, we have great people that were handling the aftermath. And then we have people that created this whole purpose for 9/11 to begin with. And that sucks. But that's a society where if you haven't conquered death and you keep reproducing and you keep passing down the same values down to your children and nobody is learning from every generation, yeah, we're going to have the same stuff, but formed in a different way. If it isn't the Vietnam War, then be the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War, the Gulf War, the war here, the war there. Every single war is a reflection of the fact that we haven't learned every generation. So yeah, until you guys get your bodies well balanced, the wars are not going to stop. They're not going to stop. And so those of you that are fighting the good fight and trying to fight the state, you're fighting yourself. And you're too worried about somebody else and you're not worried about yourself. Yeah, I mean, so no, I don't really feel too bad for those that are just so upset about the legislation, like in California, the SB, was it 277? I'm not concerned about that, because look at this. If you're a strong body, you'd be able to handle your environment, because vaccines are just a reflection of your environment. So if you can't handle the vaccines, the current vaccines today, then yeah, you're weak. And then we have a lot of kids that are very weak, and yeah, they may need to space out these vaccines, but here's the thing. No matter what, the kids are going to be exposed to the ever unfolding universe. So it's like people are going to have to figure out how to adapt. And if they can't, they're not going to be able to adapt anyways. And if you're that afraid, and if you don't even have any kids, or if you have kids, but they're like, over the age of 18, or they're not of vaccine age, and you're still worried about vaccines, then you're just fighting just to fight, because that's really the only purpose you have at this point, is just to fight a battle, because you're not willing to fight your own battles. So you'll fight other people's battles, of which then is pointless. It just contributes to then paving another atmosphere for another 9/11. I'm going to tell you, there are activists that are highly extremist, and you have no idea what it is that you're creating out there when you're painting a picture that doesn't exist. Get your body, get your mind, get your spirit well balanced, and then you'll take yourself out of the war. You'll stop contributing to the wars that are out there, and then maybe you might actually have peace on this earth, and you stop contributing to the nonsense. Okay? Because actually I find myself way more peaceful now, not worried about Monsanto, the chemtrails, the 5G, vaccines, prescription drugs. I'm not worried about anything. I really am not. Now I just want to get the word out that, hey, you have an access to get your body well balanced. And if you don't do it, that's your own fault. But I'm going to say, if you don't do Jilly Juice and you don't want to conquer the aging process, because really, truly, to conquer the aging process is to bring the right, correct elements into your body. And yeah, you'll have to face the generational pain. Those of you who are doing Jilly Juice are going to have to face the pain that your parents inflicted upon you. And then you're going to have to deal with the pain that you've inflicted upon yourself and what you inflict upon your children. And then you're going to have to deal with the pain of the past, present, and potentially the future. And if you're not ready to deal with the pain of healing, then you'll keep repeating, and then you'll keep repeating the same mistakes, and you keep passing it down to your children. The same mistakes to your children, because you have not conquered the aging process. So some of you are like, my age or younger, so you haven't really experienced too much of, the aging process. And so I've given you enough energy to still loop in the same fear and the same contributing to the 9/11 type of stuff, contribute to the extremism. Just like I gave the lady on Dr. Phil enough energy for her to bash me, I've given some of you enough energy to fuel your hate campaigns in your fear campaigns against vaccines, against Monsanto. And I realize that, but I get eventually it'll bite you in the ass. Because you've put yourself in a war that you don't belong in. We should not be putting ourselves in these wars that really we have no business being in. If you're like Stephanie Heidenreich, if you're doing the Jilly Juice, you should not be afraid of the vaccines. Why you're still promoting the anti-vax, I don't understand. When you have access to Jilly Juice, you know about Jilly Juice. You know that dogs don't have to eat raw food. They could eat kibble, add in the Jilly Juice. They could eat table food. They'll go to the healing symptoms. And guess what? They don't have to play the discrimination game. You know this. I've worked with you, Stephanie. You've been part of my moderators for a long time. And then you fell off the wagon somewhere and decided to go back into the activism and promoting the discrimination, the holistic stuff. You know, so it's like, yeah, I understand that that the Jilly Juice gives people enough energy to keep going with their anti-everything campaigns and keep fueling themselves for war. And I get that. And part of me is like, damn, but I know I can't control you, or I can't control anyone else out there that slid back to the activism and got off the Jilly Juice. I know I can't control that. And I know it's going to fuel people to fuel their hatred against me and hatred against everything else. And I understand that too. But you also have access to take yourself out of the wars and to then repave a different future for your children so they're not living in fear, turning into extremists, because mommy is an extremist. Okay? We have the potential to finally just get rid of the nonsense. And for us to have a great future with a great government, you have to create well-balanced children. And if you're not well-balanced yourself, how the hell are you going to have a future with a well-balanced society if you can't even start with yourself? That's really what it comes down to. So if you haven't conquered the reversing of the aging process to where you're taking yourself out of all of these wars and these activist campaigns, then you're never, ever going to get the utopia that you want by being an anti-vax, being anti-Monsanto, being anti-this, because you're creating fear where there's no fear there should be. Dogs don't have to eat raw meat. If kids are strong, they would be able to handle the vaccines. But if you have weak children, then maybe we need to strengthen our children so they can handle their environment. Because I'll tell you, the environment is not going to change. The environment is not going to change. The viruses, the bacteria on communicable people are going to get only stronger. So the more that you fear of everything, the stronger the messages is. And then guess what? Life is going to then balance out and take away the weaknesses. It happens. The human resets happen a few times. I mean, 15 million people in Europe died from the Black Plague. Guess who were the ones that succumbed to that Black Plague? The elderly and the children and the immunocompromised. Okay, so if you can't handle the vaccine schedule, if you can't handle your current environment, you're not going to live a very long time. And then guess what? You're going to be raising children that are going to be just as fearful as you are, if not worse. And then they could turn into extremists that have to end up being bailed out of jail or under indictment because they took their activism too far. That's what it comes down to, is that we are creating children that are going to take the activism too far, and they're going to make society worse in that manner. Okay, and so we all have a responsibility. Use my drooling here, but we really do have a responsibility to take ourselves out of these wars. Go enjoy your life. Okay, life doesn't mean making people wrong, which I know it seems like I am, but if we don't get a hold of this, I mean, the whole point of the whole J juice is to deal with the biochemistry to then exemplify well-balanced behavior. Okay? So we don't have to die and we don't have to procreate, because guess where all the problems stem from? Growing up and growing old. And if you are in your 30s and you are not doing the J juice, you're growing old. Every single year is a nail in your coffin because you're not bringing in the nutrients. And then you start glitching. So when people growing up, they're learning all the ways of the world. And we have, 7 billion, 3.5 billion people who are children making huge mistakes, The other 3.5 billion are adults that are aging, or let's just cut that up in thirds. 2/3 of our society is glitching. 1/3 is living their best life for a minute, like Malik Garrett. Looks like you're living a pretty cool life, traveling around doing stuff. I don't see too much activism from you and all that. But then there's then you represent the middle, the middle of our society where they're living their best life, and then we have 2/3 of our society glitching because they're growing up, learning the ways of the world and messing up, and some are messing up bigger than others. And then we have people who are degrading, growing old, and glitching that way. Okay? So what if we had people who are like, Malik Garrett, just living their best life, traveling around, minding their own business, trying to take care of their body, doing their thing? It would be a peaceful society if we had just people like Malik Garrett. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have your issues. I'm sure you do, but I'm just using an example. Okay? So that's what I'm shooting for, is that we don't have a growth process that's so precarious or an aging process that's so precarious and full of war. Because youth is full of war, and then growing old is a battle. So there's a lot of battles of growing up and growing old. What would happen if we didn't have to have a battle of growing up and growing old? Because the battles are what contributes to all of this sadness, to the 9/11s. The people who perpetrated 9/11 are glitching. Maybe not necessarily growing up, but they're growing old. And when you're growing old, you're going to make bad decisions. And it could be growing up, because then you're learning the same mentality from your parents, because some societies are so extreme that they will plan their whole life to go after a country or a specific people. And we don't need to do that. Why would we want to? Anyway, so just something to think about. Okay? But, I appreciate those that helped me along the way to get where I am today. I know not everyone is going to follow me, that were with me in the beginning, that were there for me in the beginning, and I get it. I get disappointed, yes, because I really had high hopes for a lot of my moderators to stay with this. But, it really, it does take commitment to really focus on your own healing process. And when you lose sight of your goals and of your future, and you find more happiness in the wars out there, then that just shows kind of the battle within you. And hopefully maybe that's just, a hiccup, that maybe you might finally get off the war train and fight the battle within you, because the battle isn't out there. The battle's inside. The battle isn't out there. This is for Stephanie. I love Stephanie. She's a great, great chick. But yeah, I've been watching your Facebook, and I'm just like, oh my God. Maybe one day you'll get back on the train of J-Juice. I'm not saying that you have to promote me, but at least do it and stop worrying about the anti-vax, because your kids are going to be fine. They're doing J-Juice. You don't have to worry about what other people are doing. Fine, you want to feed your dog raw food. But you know what? I feed my dog kibble and the J-Juice. And guess what? She's healthier than most dogs out there. She's healthy. She's happy. And she doesn't need to eat raw food. Okay? So you can have all different diets as long as J-Juice is a factor in it. And then we don't have to play the divide and conquer and all of that. All right. Have a good day. Bye.